right. Mike's on the move. Good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Welcome to the 9th and final Free Faders online live lesson. It happens to coincide with May the 4th, a Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. And just like Star Wars has 9 episodes. Anyways, the last couple weeks we've been covering some pretty theory intensive stuff, sort of learning about the notes on the note wheel, the 12 different chromatic notes, and then how that translates into scales and how to put scales onto the fretboard. And now we're going to focus it even more into, basically we're just doing it into chord patterns. So we're going to go over how you build a chord, how the G chord, how the D chord, A minor, how it's all put together so that you have a better understanding of the chords that you're playing, so that you're not just saying, the D chord, what notes are in it and how you can even change it or play stuff that complements it. So I think we'll get started. I'm Anthony.
I'm Jordan.
And let's dive on in.
All right. So first thing I want to bring to you guys' attention is down here, we have our scale wheel. We used this in our last lesson last week, and we plotted out our different major scales, right? So we're just going to keep looking at C for today, just to keep it nice and easy for you guys. So quick reminder, we have our notes in our major C scale here. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And we're still moving the same distance between every note for this scale. So we move C as a whole to D, whole to E, half to F, whole to G, whole to A, whole to B, half to C. So that all stays the same. Now we're going to apply some numbers to each one of these as well. So you can see we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 going around. And we're going to use those numbers to build out our scales. So again, like everything we've talked about in the last couple of weeks, the pattern isn't going to change. So no matter which note you start with on number 1, as long as you follow your pattern and plug in your notes accordingly, all this stuff we're going to cover here is going to apply as well. So we'll start with a major chord. So the major chord uses the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th of its scale. So you can see here we have, that's a whole plus a whole movement, and a whole plus a half movement is another way to look at it, if that makes it easier for you guys. So our number 1, or our root note, is going to be C. So we're using a C. Our 3rd, or our number 3, is going to be an E. And then our 5th, or number 5, is going to be a G. So a C major chord has to include C, E, and G. Anything beyond that, you kind of have like a little bit of a variation of that C major chord. And it's very basic bones. C, E, G, 1, 3, 5. And again, if we were to plug in a different set of notes here, we'd be using its 1st, its 3rd, its 5th, and we would have a similar layout. So minor chords do this just a little bit differently. We're going to use a 1, a flat 3rd, and a 5th. So you can see we have, that's a whole half plus a whole plus a whole. So what is a flat 3rd? Well, if you remember from our last lessons, half typically means, well, it always means we're going, a flat means we're always going down. So we're going to take that 3rd and we're going to half it down. So in that case, it would be an E flat or a D sharp, right? Remember those 2 names, same note. So a regular 3rd for the C major is an E. When we flat it, we don't have it here, but we'll see it on the next page here. It's an E flat. Okay, and then we have diminished. We're going to use similar idea here. We have our 1st, so we're still going to be using C. Then we have our flat 3rd, which we said was an E flat. Then we're going to have a flat 5th, which in this case will be a G flat or an F sharp. Okay, so you can see we're still just using kind of these numbers to place or to find our notes, but to get a different, what's the word I'm looking for, degree? Degree, then you're going to get minors and diminished chords. All right. Next page. Anything you want to add?
No, that makes sense. Cool. So this will be a little tricky because I didn't pre-rip it. We ripped it down.
Okay. So here we have up the top our C major. You can see our 1, 3, 5, C, E, G. Perfect. We have our C minor. So we have our 1, our C, our flat third, so E flat or D sharp, and then 5, still G. We didn't change anything there. And then our diminished chord, our first is a C, flat third, E flat or D sharp, and then a flat fifth, G flat or F sharp. So we can, this stuff, what's it going to apply to, you might be wondering, I suppose, is when somebody asks you, oh, we're playing in this key, or can you play in this key? This is how you're going to be able to figure out which chords to play in the key and how to do so. So we have these little sections built up here, and these are just little breakaways from that scale wheel we were looking at. So you can see our first one in our scale is going to be our first, third, fifth. That's a major chord. So that'll be our C. And then we have our next note in our scale is D, right? So then D is going to be a minor chord. And the way we're going to figure that out is we're going to use second, fourth, and sixth notes of our scale. Next one is going to be a minor as well. We're going to be using third, fifth, and seventh. Fifth is going to be a major chord. Or, sorry, our next chord is going to be a major chord. And it's going to use a 1, 4, a 6. Then another major chord using the second, the fifth, seventh. Minor uses a first, third, and a sixth. And then that diminished is the seventh, second, and the fourth. Okay.
It's a little cluttery because I drew that out like 15 minutes ago. Yeah.
So
Is that on the worksheets?
Yep. This particular instance of it is not like it's not written in a wheel. These are all on the worksheet written in a row.
Okay.
And basically all it really does is like you wouldn't call a minor a 2, 4, and a 6 necessarily, but the second, fourth, and sixth, between the second and the fourth is a hole and a half. Between the fourth and the sixth is 2 holes, and a hole and a half, and then 2 holes. That interval is the same as a first, flat third, and fifth, which is the minor pattern. So that's what makes that minor, is those distances between those. And then starting at the third, hole plus half, and then 2 holes, right? That's that first, flat, third, fifth pattern, that minor pattern. So that's sort of how we're extracting those major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, being that other one. So those are all the chords in the one key. See, if you like modify the flat, like the third to make it flat third, right, to make a C minor chord, you're no longer playing a chord that fits in the C major scale because you modified it. But you can use that to find different chords if you want. The real thing is playing in key. You want to sort of use this sort of a thing using the major scale, finding all the different chords that you can play in it, C major, D minor, etc.
So if all of these wheels and numbers are getting a little bit confusing, which I wouldn't be, or I wouldn't blame you guys if it was, one thing you can just remember is maybe even just this pattern of major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. Because that pattern, again, is going to stay the same for every major scale. So if we think of our major scale, in this case C, C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, right? So we're still just doing our musical alphabet, still just following our major scale, and we can just put those little degrees on the end of them, and then that would be your scale. So if you were to play C major, D minor, E minor, if you were to play through all the chords in the scale, you'll actually hear that major scale kind of built within the chord as you go through it.
Yeah. So you could plug any note in there. If you plugged a G into your major scale, it'd be the same idea. So G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp diminished. It's the same thing. So you can plug any note in there and then get the series of chords that you can play, major, minor, and diminished chords that you can play in that scale. Really easy. So someone says the key of E, you just put E in there and you do the same thing, E, F, G, etc. Yeah.
So if somebody said to you while we're playing a 1-4-7, I'm just choosing random numbers at random, 1-4-7 in the key of C, you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? It's another way some people will present the chord degrees to you anyway. So diminished, nice. Now down here we just have kind of laid out for you. This is just the 1-3-5s. So the C's, E's, and G's for that major C, where all of those different notes are laid out. So we have the root notes highlighted in a pink square there for the C's, and then all the E's and G's are circled in a nice light green there. So that shows you where you could place your fingers and make a C chord just within those first couple frets, right? So we know our standard one. We've been over that a few times, the staircase there, where you get that C chord. That's nice, but we could build all sorts of different ones. Well, I have a C, E, and a G right here, so if I do that, I got a C chord there as well. Turn that up a little bit. Or like the first one we looked at, the really easy 3-string one, open G, first finger on the B string there, C, E. That's also a C chord, right? So just with even within the first 5 frets, we have a whole bunch of different ways to play the C chord. That one, the staircase version, is kind of the most common, for lack of a better term, version to see that. But these different variations and different ways to play it will add a little bit of flair and a little bit of difference and variety into your playing. So once you start to understand, okay, I can move this C over here. For example, 2 guitar players could play 2 C's in different spots. I'll do that one, and it'll mesh nicely. So that sounded like a much fuller chord.
Mm-hmm.
So just like,
Yes, even though we played the exact same notes.
Yeah, it's just in different orders and in different spots.
music to my ears.
Yeah, so like a few things that you can do when you're putting the notes on there and you want to like play like a C major or something or whatever. Usually you start with the root note as your lowest note. So when you play that C chord, you'll notice that you don't play anything on the low E, and that's because the only notes in that sort of first few frets range are E and G. So then you start with your root note. The first available root note is right down here, and then you build the rest of it off of that. You can only play 1 note per string, so you move up, right? So that's sort of like that's sort of one thing that you want to consider when you're building a chord is starting with the root note. Although you don't necessarily have to. You could play like with the low G or something, or with that low E. Although, fun fact, that playing a C major with a low E is also an E minor augmented fifth, which we don't need to worry about. Don't remember that because it will confuse you. But
Cover that in episode 30 of
yeah.
our ongoing saga.
Yeah.
It may be too soon, episode 30. But yeah, just really all it is playing the root note. If you play a lower, like a different note as your lower note, you can sort of influence the sound of it. And even though you're playing the notes in that chord, and it could be technically considered that chord, you are possibly playing a totally different chord. So that's something to bear in mind. And it can sound cool because I do like the sound of that with that low E. You can sort of walk the bass line, sort of that sort of a thing. So that's sort of how that's used. So basically your steps are, if you want to play chords in a key, and you just sort of want to practice and really get familiar with the notes, draw out or use a note wheel. Then using that whole half pattern, create yourself a scale wheel, picking whatever note you want to play in the key of. So in this case, C major, right? It's the C major. C is the easiest one to use because the C major scale has no sharps or flats. So it's really easy to understand and to work off of. But you can put anyone in there. and then you can start building your chords using these 1 3 5 2 4 6 7 3 or sorry 3 5 7 etc. All these patterns to extract all your different chords off of there for the key. Then you can find all the different places you want to play them by writing out whatever scale that you did onto the fretboard. Once you've written that out and you see where all the notes are laid out, you can start finding them and playing all these chords in different spots all over the fretboard. It's a little bit tedious at first when you're like drawing that stuff out, but if you do it like every day or every other day, every couple days, it just gets ingrained in your head and you can write it out in like 2 seconds or like 15 minutes, like me. But it just sort of comes to you naturally, and you just start picturing the notes on your fretboard just in your head. It makes it so much easier to understand, and it's totally worth putting in the time and like screwing up here and there and correcting it.
Excellent.
Cool. Just running a few polls here.
Absolutely.
First question was, are you excited to keep playing and practicing your guitar after all these weeks of what we've been going through? And it was an overwhelming 100% of people said that they were wanting to continue and keep playing their guitar. So
Nice.
That's pretty
Perfect.
awesome.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that.
Yes,
Yes.
definitely.
It's
I'm firmly in that category as well. How
it's
about you guys?
oh, absolutely. For I don't know how many years now, 30, maybe 31, like more than half my life
But you're only 25 years old.
at heart.
Cool.
Yeah. No, it's this has been really cool for us. I hope it's been really cool for everybody. It sounds like it's been really great based on the poll.
Yes.
I mean, we're
very
dealing with
official
we're
results.
we're dealing with percentages here, which is great. Makes things look better. But no, it's been really cool for us to be able to do something like this. It's been a great experiment for us to try out online stuff because we hadn't done it before this. So we're glad that on multiple levels that so many cool things have come of this, like people wanting to get into music, and us figuring out how to do online stuff and deliver you online content has been a great experience for us. It's been, and hopefully great for you. All 100% of you who took the poll.
So I guess, do we have any questions about kind of this stuff here? I know it was a little more advanced today.
Yeah.
So if there's anything we can clear up about that.
And honestly, previous lesson material too.
Yeah, this is a good time to ask anything.
This is an ask anything. Yeah. We can answer questions all the way back to lesson 1 and random other questions.
In lesson 4, at the 12-minute mark, Anthony mumbled something, and I don't know what it was. Can you please repeat that?
I don't know what it was either. I can't even understand myself when I mumble.
I just made that up.
Yeah. No. Well, I wouldn't put it past anybody. Sometimes I can mumble. That's for sure.
I put another poll out there. I was curious if people that are watching write their own music, or if they mostly spend their time learning other people's songs. And getting some results here. What do you guys think? What do you think take a guess?
I'm gonna go 60-40, 60 write their own.
60 right there. Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna flip, just to be contrarian.
Okay, so you can see 60-40 the other way.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's 86% learn other people's music and 14% write their own music. So that's interesting.
Very
cool.
That's
You guys
cool.
write your own music, right? What percentage of time do you guys spend learning other people's stuff versus writing your own?
When I practice, I'm basically, my practice is writing. So when I'm trying to advance techniques, I'll like come up with a new exercise that sounds really cool, that's making me sort of do a technique in a way that's out of my comfort zone until I become comfortable with it. So as a result, I end up writing a lot of like really technical stuff, but I mean, technical for me, probably easy for some people. But it's basically like I have a ton of music just written because I practice that way.
Cool.
And then I learn certain songs or parts of songs that I really, really enjoy now and again as well.
Cool.
I would honestly say I spend most of my time learning other songs, and that's because like my bands, the music I play, generally speaking, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. So by learning other songs and learning those techniques in songs and stuff that you really like, then you can start to apply that stuff to your own music. We only have 12 notes to work with, so by the end of the day, you know, it's all just a different way of stringing them together. So
Cool. And both of you guys, I'm going to plug you guys for a moment. Both of you guys have recorded albums and EPs and stuff like that. And you can buy them at Faders. We got them right on the counter.
It's true.
Anthony's is right on the right, just prime real estate right on the front counter here.
Yeah, I put it there.
Jordan's are buried in the back somewhere. We got those as well.
Okay.
So, you know, next time you're in the store, folks, definitely you should pick one of those CDs up. It's pretty good stuff.
Yeah, and
if I may toot their horns.
If you want the value of my album to go down, I'll even sign it for you.
Perfect. Okay, good question. I've heard that the key of G is easier to play. Is that true? And if so, why?
The key of G easier to play. I've never heard of any particular key being easier other than on piano. Some people believe that certain keys are easier to like key of C major because key of C major doesn't use many of the black keys. So you can stay mostly on the white key, well, entirely on the white keys in the key of C. And the key of G is probably the next easiest one because you only have one sharp you're adding. Instead of playing F, you're playing F sharp. Whereas on guitar, I don't necessarily find it easier or more difficult to play in a certain key because there's so many open chords. It really just depends on what chords you find more comfortable to hold. So it really all depends on your hand.
I think the key of G is also fairly common, very popular.
Yeah.
So a lot of songs sitting in there. Because when I think key of G, I think G, D, E minor, C, and we all know songs that follow that. So
Thousands and thousands
Yeah.
of songs. So I guess from that sense, it's pleasing to the ear, and you know people get used to playing it, and maybe that just makes it people play it more, so
Yeah.
they find it easier or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good answer. Perfect. Lots of people saying thanks and everything like that. So, what are the polls at? Yeah, no, overwhelming. People are learning other people's stuff, so that's going to show the results in the video here.
I'm in the minority.
Yes.
I do learn a lot of other songs. It's just that I play so much that the amount of time that's dedicated to learning other people's songs is small in comparison. I do learn a fair bit.
But probably when you guys were, earlier on in your development, you probably spent more time learning other people's stuff. And
Oh yeah,
that
tons of
transition-
Megadeth.
yeah, there you go, right? Like when you're beginning, that's what you're doing for the most part. I mean, some people start writing their own stuff early on, but I think a lot of people probably are mostly learning and then choose to, evolve into writing their own stuff if they want to and everything. But
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, no, I did start writing pretty early on, and a lot of it sucked because I just wanted to be the bands that I was playing. So I mean, if you for people who are writing, it's good to have influences, and I think a lot of the struggle for people to write is trying to find something that sounds good to yourself when you're playing, that also doesn't sound like it's totally another band's song already. So looking back on my stuff, I have a lot of songs that I just threw out because I didn't like them. But there's the odd song that I go back and I'm impressed. So down the road when you're looking back at some of the old songs that you had, you might find something that you wrote when you first started this guitar playing. Really holds up, and then who knows, maybe you could go somewhere and record it or get some recording equipment from Faders, set up a little home studio and record it yourself too.
What as far as practice time, how much time do you guys recommend for practicing, and maybe how to fit that into your schedule? I have some thoughts on this matter, but I'll let you guys go first.
Yeah. Myself, I don't have like a very like regimented schedule, but I do feel that for some people who are struggling with the instrument, it's good to start a regimen, because it sort of forces you to practice when you're feeling less motivated. Um, but I mean, like as far as like a recommended time, honestly, I think as much as you can handle, as much as you can handle practicing is the best. Um, because like if you're like I'm going to practice for an hour and like 10 minutes in you're just done, then you feel like you didn't accomplish it. But it's like I'm going to sit down and practice, and I'm just going to practice until I'm done. Maybe it lasts 5 minutes, but you didn't like not meet your goal that you set, where like I was going to practice for an hour. Or maybe you're like I'm going to sit down and practice for 10 minutes, and but you don't time it. You practice and you look at the clock and like 20 minutes went by, that sort of a thing. But every day is the most important thing. I think. I mean, and like you're not going to lose your ability to play guitar if you miss a day. It doesn't work that way, but consistency is totally key. You'll get the most out of it if you try to play at least a little bit every day, like whether it's like 5 or 10 minutes or like an hour.
I teach guitar, so I play it a lot, but playing is practice. So I think like when you want to move on and learn something new, that's really good. That's really constructive. But if at the end of the day you only play 4 chords for 10 minutes, yeah, that's practice. Even if it's the 4 chords that you're the absolute best at, you never make a mistake. You're still working on those skills. But picking it up every day is just the way. It's just like it's hard to explain what I'm trying to say, but keeping it in your hands, keeping it fresh. There was one time, I will admit, I came here. I didn't warm up before we got on camera, and I couldn't play for a darn. Whereas I learned my lesson, and I did my 4-finger warm up before that, and it makes all the difference in the world. Just getting your fingers ready to play. So,
yeah, I completely agree with you guys, and I'm going to expand on it a little bit. I think for people who really struggle to be motivated to practice, I think every day, definitely, but I think taking it a step further and doing it at a scheduled time every day, so that every day at, if you got some time in the morning, 7:45 in the morning for 15 minutes, or in the evening, it's kind of like going to the gym in a sense. Like if you get into that routine, if it becomes part of your routine, then eventually what happens is it's not a chore anymore. You're playing. You're not really practicing. It just becomes something that you don't have to. You can loosen up on the regulations a little bit. But I think having just a set time every day that you can sort of, and even if it's really a short little stint, like 8 minutes or whatever, first thing in the morning or whatever, I think that helps just to get past that real tough spot, and then it just becomes a lot more enjoyable. And then I think you can. But I think that's one added thing that can help make it a part of a routine.
Yeah. Yes, and for kids as well, especially. Like I don't know very many kids in elementary school who don't have time to practice.
Yeah.
I recommend practicing after your homework, but before video games.
Good. It's like a sandwich.
Re-roll if you like playing video games more than guitar, because at the moment you're still learning guitar and it's still a struggle. Make video games the reward for putting in the time to practice guitar. Because the more that you're able to consistently practice guitar, the better you get at guitar. And the better you get at guitar, the more fun it is to play and the more you'll want to play it.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's perfect. That's great advice.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm sorry. I just never bought it when I have a kid tell me I was really busy during the week. You have a full-time job on top of that school. But
no, that's cool.
Yeah.
I think that covered most of the questions.
Perfect.
But that was a good one, because that's something you get asked a lot. And you read there's all kinds of theories on that. But
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's just got to do what works for them, right?
Mhm.
And it's whatever works down the road, you never regret
Yep.
learning how to play. You know,
And play what you love, and don't play things for other people, right? Or to impress anybody or anything like that. You're doing this for yourself. It's a great skill, and if you're playing the music you like, then that's all the reward in itself. So
well,
Absolutely.
that goes to the instrument as well. We get asked a lot about should I buy an acoustic guitar or an electric guitar? Should I buy my kid an acoustic guitar or an electric guitar? And it's like, to me, whatever instrument is going to get played more.
Yeah.
I mean, it used to be a much bigger difference in price to go to an electric guitar and all that kind of stuff. But really, whatever one is going to get played more is, whether you're an adult or a kid or whatever, the one that you look at and you're like, yes, that is what I want. That's the one to own,
Yeah.
because then you'll play more. And then
Yeah.
it's just,
Oh, absolutely. You don't want to consider, and you don't want to consider skill level when you're purchasing a guitar, when you're making the financial decision. Just what you can afford to buy, honestly,
Yeah.
is the best decision too. Just because I see people come in sometimes and they look at a guitar and they're like, well, I'm only a beginner, I'm not a professional, so I shouldn't get that guitar, that's like, a little bit more money than the other one I'm looking at. But I mean, if you really like it, if it's within your budget, that's going to be the instrument that motivates you to practice more. That's something that I think is important to know too. There isn't like a beginner, intermediate, and advanced guitar. There's just more affordable guitars and more expensive guitars.
yeah, whatever one is going to get you playing, that's the one you should have, I think.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the price is, as long as you can.
As long as it's within your budget,
Yeah.
right? As long as you can afford it.
Yeah.
Then that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
We're really getting into
Lots of people saying thanks. Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you
Awesome.
guys. Well, yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in to 9 of these things. And some of you joined a little later too. Thank you for joining in as well and hanging out. All of the videos will be on available for you guys to review, going back and looking at them and everything. So I mean, you can treat this series as like something you could watch through again and again, just to really get everything to sink in. I feel like we really want to have different material every week, and it's hard to gauge how quickly everybody advances from week to week, because we're not dealing with you in like we would in a private lesson like we have here. So I mean, you can always look back on this stuff and work through it. And if you haven't been taking private lessons from us, if you check out faders.ca and look, you can get a bunch of information on how to register for that. We're doing them currently online. And if you want a little bit more hands-on, a little bit more focused on what you're struggling with or what you want to learn, you can look into signing up for those too, if you want to keep going on and learning more.
Yeah, whether it's guitar, drums, piano, vocal lessons,
Yeah.
we're doing them all online, and hopefully in September we can get back to, in person, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. With the current restrictions, we can only have so many people in the store, right? So, that said, if you need anything from the store, you can.
yeah, we're open now.
We're open now, and if you're trying your best to stay at home as much as possible as well, then we can always do curbside or local delivery as well.
Yeah, we're still doing all that stuff too.
So all that's still in place too. So we can get you what you need.
Cool. Right on. Well, I think, everybody's saying thanks, and
Great.
I
Yeah,
guess that's it. The saga concludes.
That's
great.
Wow.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you guys very much.